All right, continuing on with documents 151 to 200. Hopefully we'll finish in this particular part, this batch of 50, and we can move on, because I know a lot of you are just chomping at the bit for me to finally catch up with the rest of the internet on finishing the document review. I want to, though, stop and digress one more time on the narrative shaping. So at early stage, we pointed out last episode, last video, the MPD looked for Google searches for anything related to searching about the house or the girls prior, anyone and everyone searching for terms related to the house. Google came back and said it was too broad. You're asking for too much. We can't give you that. And then they were given Brian Koberger's name and said, okay, fine. Then let's just look at Brian Koberger, to which they complied. And I talked about how that was selective viewing. Now, here's a reminder how narrative shaping comes out. It could be easy to say true. They're being truthful with the following statements. We looked at everybody related to this search. True. You asked for a search of everybody on Google who searched for certain things. We looked into everybody. And the only person we could find information about was Brian Koberger. Also true. But what would, and that would sound really bad, right? That would sound really bad in the narrative, right? We looked into everyone, and the only person that came back with anything of interest was Brian Koberger. That would sound like, and those would be both maybe factually true. You did originally look at everyone, and you did eventually ask for just Brian Koberger, and you got it. What you're failing to mention is that when you asked for everyone, Google said it was too broad and gave you nothing. And then you narrowed it down and said, okay, just give me Brian Koberger. And so if you want to do narrative shaping, you can say, we asked for everyone, but we only got information about Brian Koberger. And those things are true, but it's slippery. Do you see what I'm saying? All right, let's get back to the document review. Detective Mowry, or Lawrence Mowry, I don't know if he's a detective. I think he's a detective, but Lawrence Mowry, 3/22/23. On February 26th, 2023, the warrant was granted. So they're asking for a warrant from Magistrate Megan Marshall, within 14 days to serve the legal process. On March 1st at 2023, at approximately 10:24 in the morning, the warrant was served via the email something@strava.com. This is interesting. Strava is, I believe, an app for tracking runs. It's what runners use for tracking runs, their mileage, their distance, certain stats like that, the days they went on runs, et cetera, because it was told to us a long time ago that Brian Koberger was a runner. He liked to go out and run on a regular basis. And by the way, this is something I said on the whole, that creepy effing, picture of Brian Koberger giving the thumbs up in his shower that morning after the murders. Did he just go for a run? Is he did he just record a big jog that morning and was like, hey, I just got done with my run. Look at me, I'm staying healthy and fit. And was it that? As some of you, I'm not going to say, it was the, look at me, Ma, I just killed a bunch of people. I'm so proud of myself. Whatever narrative you want to go with, people, it's all good. So, except for when death is on the line. Not going to go there. All right. So I received an email shortly after the submission confirming the receipt of the request and assigned the Strava ticket, such and such. On March 15th, I received an email from Strava stating that the data requested pursuant to the warrant was available to download. On March 22nd, I logged into the law enforcement portal and began downloading the files to the forensic computers located in the same secure forensic computer lab at the Moscow Police Department. In reviewing the contents, I found the user of the account had a date of birth of whatever, 1994. Is that Koberger? I don't know what year Koberger was born. Is that Koberger? And logged into the account, and they had logged into the account on July 31st, 2022. Well, that's before he even moved out to Pullman in August of 2022 at 9 something in the morning from the IP address of, and they won't tell us the IP address, that's probably good. This IP address showed it may be located near Sammamish, Washington, and is sourced to Leah Sweb, I don't even know that, from Seattle. I don't know what that is. The mobile device ID showed such and such, such and such. I don't know whose fucking Strava account this is and how it relates, but it says, look, on February, it's looking for Strava accounts linked to Brian Koberger. The problem with this is that it shows Koberger allegedly in July doing runs in Sammamish, Washington, and I don't think Koberger had ever come out to Washington prior to his August appearance. So I'm super confused. I found the two saved run routes, so it's recording his runs, both located on or near the Washington State University. I'm a little confused. Koberger moved out in August, I believe. Maybe he came out July 31st prior to August. Did he come out, check out the campus? Did he come for a previous scouting thing? Went for a couple runs in Pullman, Washington, or around that area, or Sammamish, or whatever. I don't know. It's of note. It just made me want to comment on it. I'm not making any logic jumps on that. Brett Payne from March 22nd, 2023. Collection of knives near Genesee. I was notified by ISP Detective Roberts. I don't know why I always fuck that up. Detective Roberts at approximately 1300 hours on March 21st that a landowner near Genesee, Idaho found 2 knives in a roadside ditch. Detective Roberts was not available, so I called to speak to the reporting party. Such and such, such and such, and such stated he was cleaning out irrigation ditches when he noticed 2 kitchen-style knives with duct tape handles in the ditch. So again, somebody's trying to put extra grip on a knife that they're maybe chopping people up with. I don't know. So this person did not touch the knives and notified Idaho State Police. He told me, or she told me, that where the knives were, and I responded to collect them. The location provided was in a ditch across the road from the driveway to such and such address, Old Highway 95. I could immediately see the knives laying in the water and took several photos of the knives prior to collection. Upon collection, I observed one knife was a large butcher knife and the other was a small steak knife. The handles of both knives were wrapped in duct tape. Prior to leaving, I conducted one more visual search of the area and located a makeshift duct tape sheath in the culvert below where the knives were located. The sheath fit both knives at the same time. I collected the sheath as well. Upon further examination, however, I'm adding the word however, neither knife appeared to match the wounds on the 4 victims. The larger knife blade was too wide to have inflicted the wounds on the victims, and the smaller steak knife appeared to be too short. However, I booked both items in the case. Further examination was needed. I booked the knives into MPD evidence. Now, several things I want to point out. One, there's a lot of people out there with knives wrapped in duct tape or extra grip that make you wonder, what the fuck are people doing out there? What are they doing with these knives? And I guess kids can be doing it to play. They feel cool, or who knows? Or they're doing shit that we don't want to know, or there's other crimes we don't want to know about. Who knows? But it's not related to the crime. And it does tell us a bit about the wounds. It's telling us that a butcher knife is too big to have committed the wounds that they see, and a small steak knife is not deep enough. So those wounds went deep. So it tells you things a little bit about the wounds indirectly from that report. Let's plug on. Let's see if we can get this thing done in the amount of time, because one of these is big. Is this the big one? No, it's not the big one. All right. So this is Brett Payne. No, I left the big one for last because I thought it was most important. It was most important. All right. 3/22/2023. On March 4th, 2023, somebody named OT called the MPD tip line and left a voicemail regarding a tip for this case, in which she described seeing a man walk by her house at such and such a location sometime during August or September of 2022. Sergeant Blaker sent me the tip on March 15th. I spoke to this person via phone on March 21st. I did not record our conversation. I don't know why you're not recording these conversations, but anyways. I asked this person to relay to me what her tip was in reference to, and she told me she used to live at such and such address. This home is located approximately 0.13 miles due east of the 1122 King Road residence. Why is my light flickering out? I've got a light that's flipping out beside me. All right. She told me that she was home one day. So she lives 0.13 miles east of 1122 King Road residence where the murders happened. She told me that she was home one day in August or September of 2022 when her daughter came running into the house saying there was a man walking through their yard. Now, what date was this? I'm trying to remember. So-and-so stated that she looked out the window and saw a man who looked nervous walking on the south side of her house from east to west. She told me that she frequently saw people walk by the house, but not in that particular area. She said that the man had curly hair and with a large nose, and he walked by without saying anything. She stated the encounter became stranger when the same man walked back by the house in the opposite direction, but taking the same route approximately 15 minutes later. She said she stepped outside and yelled to the man that he was on private property. She said the man didn't look at her and simply walked away. Now, There are several reasons why I think this is important. One, I don't believe that's Kohberger. One, or two, if it had been Kohberger and he's dumb enough to take his phone to the crime scene, he probably would have taken his phone to stalking. They've repeatedly told us, Brian Kohberger was not stalking the girls. They don't know that he had ever been to the house. This is not, I believe, Kohberger walking around. But what it is, if it's not Kohberger, and I don't think it is Kohberger at all, and if it is not Kohberger, it's a person who's got a big nose. And that's important because someone later on will try to say, oh, yeah, the killer had bushy eyebrows and a big nose. And admittedly, Kohberger looks like he has a pretty big nose. It's one of those things that make people think, oh, it's got to be Kohberger. She said he had a big nose. Well, here's a person walking around the house who I believe is not Kohberger, who's suspicious and causing people to freak out and call them out and say, hey, look, you're on private property. Get the fuck out of here. You're creepy. Who's walking around the house of King Road residence area with a big nose. There's a lot of people with big noses. And again, I realize that at some point you're thinking, well, how much circumstantial evidence can you pile up before it becomes definitive? It has to be him. How can he not? He's got bushy eyebrows and a big nose. Anyways, I'm beat that enough. She told me that then unprompted that she believed the male that she saw was Kohberger after she saw a side profile picture of him on the news. So once again, your mind plays tricks on it. She saw somebody with a big nose walking around the house. It creeped her out. Then she sees Kohberger. That was Kohberger. I saw Kohberger walking near the house. Of course, they will tell you later they have no evidence Kohberger had ever been to the house. They can't place him at the house. They can't say he stalked the girls. There's no evidence. Yet they have an eyewitness here saying, I saw Kohberger stalking the girls outside the house. Essentially, that's what the person is saying. I saw Kohberger there. It couldn't have been true. We would have heard about it. It's just another guy around the house that has a big nose. She stated that she was 92% sure it was Kohberger. I'm really effing sure that's Kohberger that walked by the house. But I don't think so because the police never said it. And believe me, if they thought that they had that, they would be telling you. And a neighbor saw Kohberger walking around the house and had to scare him off. And we are going to bring her on into the courtroom and testify that she saw Kohberger stalking the girls. They weren't going to do that. So it turned out to be bullshit, I think. She stated that she did not see any other times other than that occurrence in August or September. However, and why the hell is my light flickering? My light's not plugged in very well. Sorry about that. I just got it fixed. No more of that shit. All right. She did not see him any other time after the occurrence in August or September. So according to her, this event happened in August or September. And so Kohberger was stalking those girls very early on. Again, it has officially been stated by the prosecution. There's no evidence that he stalked the girls or even knew the girls or had any connection to the house whatsoever, and may have literally, according to Bill Thompson, I think, literally may have picked that house the moment before he went in to go kill it. That he may not have known anything about the house or the girls and literally may have picked that house just randomly on his way to decide to go kill somebody. However, she told me there was another occurrence in June or July, before Kohberger even got there, when a white sedan was parked near the mailbox for over an hour. It should be noted it is a dead-end road with only residences. She told me that the vehicle left after the neighbor walked out and asked the man if he needed help. She could not positively say what type of vehicle she saw that day. She was not able to provide any further specific details. Well, again, I don't believe in June or July it was Kohberger's car outside there, but again, it makes good potential narrative. On March 22nd, Sergeant Blaker and I went to the area where she thought she saw the man. There is a well-worn path from Boyd Avenue through the Blake Avenue, which is likely where she saw the man. In addition, I spoke to the neighbor who spoke to the man in the white car, identified only as blank, who stated they remembered the encounter but could not add any further information. Ultimately, it's a no, never mind. If it was Kohberger, we would have known about it. It was not Kohberger, but it also means that somebody with a big nose, maybe bushy eyebrows, who knows, that was around the area. I'm not saying that that's the killer either. I'm just saying you pick what things you can stick and you throw it against the wall, and whatever sticks is what you keep for your testimony, and you convince people that it means something when it may not mean anything. Lawrence Mowry, March 23rd. And for the large part, here, we got to scroll down here. So he's looking through contents. I can't remember. I didn't highlight for some reason what the contents we're looking in. He's looking for contents associated with the Gmail account and a name of somebody. Okay, so they're looking for Gmail information, right? In reviewing the contents associated with the blank DeSales edu email address. So he's looking probably at Koberger's, I guess, email from DeSales. Again, I knew at one point because I read the whole document, but I apparently didn't highlight the information to tell you about it. I found 2 accounts associated with the email. The first account was the name of such and such, and the registration date was December 30th, 2022. The registration IP address was from such and such IP, which showed a location near Tampa, Florida, with Frontier Communication. This account also showed additional IP logins from Florida on January of 2023 and February of 2023, January 4th and January 11th of 23. The email addresses showed it was not verified. During these dates, Koberger was incarcerated and was not in Florida. With this information, I believe the account was a fake account. So again, people try to fake things, try to look like they're doing things that on behalf of Koberger. They're even trying to spoof his maybe email address and say, hey, look, here's Koberger doing this. Problem is, he was in jail. He couldn't have possibly done it. So, and he wasn't in Florida. So too bad, so sad, not it. The second account name was such and such, and the registration date was April 1st, 2022. The registration IP address was this, which showed a location near Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. That's where Koberger's family lives, with Pentel data. A second login IP was recorded at such and such, or as such and such on November 21st, which showed a location near Kansas City, Missouri, with level 3 communication. This IP address also showed a high probability of being a VPN exit point. The email address showed it was verified. VPN exit point. Well, we do know that Koberger used a VPN on his phone. At least it was an app on his phone. A VPN, if you're not sure what that is a virtual private network. It's designed to spoof your location. Why would you do that if you're not doing something criminal? There's lots of reasons to do it, even if you're not doing something criminal. But it's basically to make it look like you're someplace that you're not, which sounds like it's super suspicious. A perfect, legitimate way to use it, for example, would be, let's say that I want to look at a movie in a foreign country, that you have to be a member of that foreign country to watch the movie because the IP address is blocked to other countries. I could spoof my location to make it look like I'm in that country and then watch the video because it'll look like I'm in that country to the website that's serving up that video. So that's a way that people use VPNs. It doesn't mean necessarily criminal behavior. I know for a lot of people it's just sneaky. If you have nothing to hide, you shouldn't use a VPN. I use VPNs all the time, but then again, I have shit to hide and it's not bodies, so don't worry about it. Anyways, subject, research survey. Hello, I attempted to post a survey to the R prison subreddit. Now, I don't know if I want to read this a lot because I want to keep us on pace. And it's a lot of stuff talking about Koberger and Reddit and Reddit mods saying he can't post the shit that he's posting. It has relations to do with his so-called survey, which was coursework, in my opinion. Even the prosecutor said, hey, look, I know a lot of people are talking, essentially, I'm going to paraphrase, a lot of people are talking about this creepy survey that he put out where he's asking for, what were you thinking when you committed a crime? Olivia in the courtroom on sentencing mocked him with that. What were you thinking when you killed my sister? What were you thinking when you went to commit that crime? She was mocking him on that survey. But that survey, even according to the prosecution, says there's no reason to believe that was not anything other than coursework. He was literally doing criminology coursework. It was something that would have been required, as it would have been approved by his professor to do that survey in the first place. They probably know that, and they said, look, there's no reason to believe that was anything other than his coursework. But for a while, it made great headlines. And so I'm just going to go ahead and skip reading about all the back and forth with Reddit and whether or not he can post his survey or not, because it's really a no, never mind, I think. And as I went through it, I was like, this isn't really all that important. Danny Vargas, we're going to PD injury accident video. This is that video, I think, when there was a car accident in location to Brian Koberger's residence, in which the cameras of the cars all faced basically the road that Koberger would take. Problem was the timing wasn't good. Koberger's car wasn't seen on it. I'll try to hit the highlights here. At approximately 23:40 on the night before the murders, so this is on the 12th, they received a hit-and-run accident in the area of Pullman, Washington. Multiple Pullman Police Department officers arrived on scene and blocked the area off where this occurred. The location of this accident was near the west entrance to the such and such apartment complex near Koberger's residence. So in other words, their cameras on these police cars were facing where Koberger might have driven as he was heading on his way to go commit murders, because we know that he did it. And so Koberger drove past this area because we know it had to be him because he did it. I'm beating a dead horse. They had decided at some point Koberger did it, and then it was like, okay, so Koberger did this. Now we have to find out how we can prove he did it. I did not see a vehicle matching Koberger's vehicle in any of the videos on Brandy Way and the videos near California Street. The longest video recording on Brandy Way starts at 23:43, which is what, 11:43, nearly midnight, and runs for 1 hour. So it would go into 1 in the morning sometime. Past midnight sometime. All of the videos captured in Brandy Way span just that little time frame. And so Koberger wasn't leaving his apartment at that time, essentially, is the takeaway. They didn't catch him. Because earlier I had said, I want to know if any of those cameras got him. Because I thought the incident happened between 2 and 3 in the morning. That's the problem I have, people. I don't know if you caught that. Earlier, I thought they said this incident happened at like 2:30 to 3 in the morning, right around the time they say that Koberger was leaving. I said, did any of those cars get Brian Koberger on camera leaving, since the cars were facing? And I asked that question. Here they come with a report saying, yeah, we had cars facing that way. The problem is the event happened hours earlier and Koberger hadn't left. So now is there a discrepancy? Did I read it wrong earlier and the accident happened at 3 in the morning, or didn't happen at 3 in the morning? Like, I don't know, because that was my question. I saw the time frame and I thought, oh wow, they should have Koberger on the video. But they, in this report, they're saying, well, the accident happened long before that, and therefore they wouldn't have had it. It's still things that make me go, maybe I missed something. February 29th, I don't know if you follow the logic. February 29th, how are we doing for time? We're doing okay. On March 12th, so the report's on the 29th. The report is on March 29th about an event on March 12th. Anyways, March 12th, 2023, I received an email from MPD Corporal Tesdal advising someone he had called claiming responsibility for the homicide. So somebody called the police department and said, I killed those people. And that was in March. The caller hung up without providing any information. The number the call originated from was, they searched TLO and requested assistance from the FBI in looking into that number. No available database had any information on the identity of that caller. So they got a call randomly from somebody saying, yep, I killed the college kids, and then hung up and didn't give details. People do weird shit around crimes. All right. Brett Payne, March 29th, 2023. On Wednesday, March 29th, I attached 2 documents pertaining to Koberger's application for the WSU Police Department internship. These documents were provided to me by a member of the interview panel for the internship. Okay, we know that Brian Koberger was looking into serving as an intern in the Moscow Police Department. They have come out and said, boy, it was really creepy that, because again, once you identify somebody as a killer, then you go back and go, yeah, there was something creepy about that. I knew something was off with that guy. And it's, people tend to do that retroactively. Nothing would have been abnormal about that interview or that exchange, except for once he's identified as a killer. Yeah, you know, I kind of remember that being a creepy thing. So, anyways, April 13th, 2023. On March 30th, 2023, I applied for a warrant for user data from June 23rd to August 1st associated with Snapchat accounts for any of the following people: Xana, Kaylee, Ethan, Dylan, Bethany, and Maddie Mogan. So they're looking at Snapchat accounts for the girls before Koberger even comes out to Pullman. Remember, he came out sometime in August 2022 and moved in. So he's looking for data. The police are looking for data from from June 23rd on up to that point. Why are they looking into their Snapchat history before Koberger even gets there? A previous warrant to Snapchat requested the date range of August. A previous warrant had requested the date range from August 1st. Why? Because that's when Koberger, somewhere around when Koberger arrived, to November 20th. Why? Because that's when Koberger had finished committing the murders. So again, they selectively had decided Koberger is the guy. Let's look for data that happened during the time that he showed up to the time that the murders were committed. And that's the date range they looked for. But now at some point, they're going back and they're looking further back before Koberger even got there. Why? Do they suspect somebody else? That's what it kind of looks like. Because why, if you already looked for Koberger stuff, and by the way, spoiler alert, they didn't find any connection between Koberger and the girls. So now they broaden the search a little bit, it looks like, and go back and look, is there anything leading up to that? So good for them doing police work and looking for other people. It does suggest that maybe there was some hesitancy or rumor of doubt, or a thing of doubt where they're like, when I cannot find any connection between Koberger, let's look at what else was going on prior to this. If it's not Koberger, let's look a little further back. That's what it kind of felt like to me. Now, Brett Payne on April 26th. On April 21st, I received an email from somebody with initials AS from WSU with a link, secure link to download and install 8 of the WSU records requested via subpoena. I'd already checked out the service for the day and did not access the link until Wednesday, April 26. The files contain several screenshots of text conversations between professors referencing Kohberger, as well as meeting minutes from a meeting between Kohberger and some person not identified on August 19th. One of the screenshots shows a conversation between someone titled such and such, we don't know, in the text window, and an unknown person. The first message is such and such, reads, "Do you want to take Kohberger? He lists you as as people he's interested in working with." The other person replied, "If I must." Why are they pointing this out? Because it suggests that people don't want Kohberger to work with them as their intern. So it looks like it's a conversation between professors that are saying, "Do you want to take Kohberger? We got to place this guy. Nobody wants him." So the police hone in on it. This is good. This is good information. It shows Brian Kohberger is creepy, and professors are arguing over, if I have to take Kohberger, I'll take Kohberger. Something's wrong about that guy. Another screenshot of a message thread from somebody on September 14th reads, "A tells me we need to do an intervention with Kohberger. She's going to try to gather information, but apparently he's offended several of our female students. Assuming we get some details, how do you want to handle this?" The reply reads, "Let's see what when we have more information." So on September 4th, before the murders, it does have some documentation that Kohberger has been accused of bothering some female students, and they have to step in and do some intervention. It does support the narrative that's out there. It's good. I'm not going to be sarcastic. It does show that he did have some legitimate grievances going on with female students there. So to be fair, I know a lot of the times I'm spending a lot of times criticizing the police department's efforts, but to be fair, that's a good one, in my opinion. Brett Payne on May 11th. On Thursday, May 11th, 2023, I received an email from AS. This is a person, I think maybe a professor, containing a secure link and password access to installments from WSU. I accessed the link. Upon opening the files, I discovered there were 2 PDF files, containing 262 and 184 pages respectively. The files contained scanned pages of email correspondence, class assignments, mentor assignments, and other miscellaneous documents. Of note, there are several emails in the files which discuss Kohberger's specific issues, which led to him being terminated from the teaching assistant program and losing his funding for his PhD program. Now that's interesting. Over and over again earlier, I had heard Brian Kohberger might lose his PhD funding, his internship funding. He was being terminated, and he might. This is saying they got proof that he was terminated and lost his funding. So it's a slight, and it's like it's worse in that regard. It's worse than what we heard, because that was before he might. They're like, yeah, no, he was terminated from his funding. Did that send him over the edge? Well, I think he wasn't terminated from the funding until after the murders actually happened, to be fair. I don't know if you're following the logic on that. Hey, we're almost done. I think we're going to be on time. Lawrence Mowry. I was assigned the task. This is from May 11th. I was assigned the task of examining the call detail records, CDRs, that were obtained from AT&T pursuant to a warrant served by Corporal Brett Payne for the time frame of November 12th, the night of the murders, at midnight, through November 14th at midnight. These records were requested for the account associated with phone number such and such, known as the 8458 phone number, which is Brian Kohberger's. This phone was showed the subscriber as Brian Kohberger. I was specifically requested to examine the records showing connectivity to cell towers between the hours of 2 and 6 p.m. 2 and 6 PST, Pacific Standard Time, as this was the time frame surrounding the homicides at 1122 King Road residence. Although the records contained records for voice data and SMS or text messaging usage in the 48-hour data set, I only located 27 data usage records in this specific time frame. To assist in mapping the location of the cellular towers and direction of their sector antennas, I imported the data into CAST. That's the software they're using, and the 8458 phone number connects with several different cell towers in Pullman, Washington, between 2 in the morning and 2:25. So he's clearly in Pullman, they're saying, according to the data, between 2 and 2:25. The phone appears to be traveling within or near the city of Pullman, Washington. At 2:42, the phone connects to a tower near Skyline Drive in Washington State campus, so he's still on campus. At 2:47, the phone connects to a tower on Observation Drive on Washington State University campus. In continuing to examine the data, I found an approximate 2-hour period with no interactions between the phone and AT&T's network between 2:47 and 4:48 in the morning. So during the time of the murders, that's what we all know the story is. The phone went off, lost communication, was turned off, put into airplane mode, whatever the case may be, it lost communication. There's a dozen of reasons why it could have lost communication, but the story is Brian Koberger turned off his car so it couldn't be tracked going to the murder scene, and that may be true, to be fair, or it may not, I don't know. The phone connects to a tower located near Paradise Ridge at 4:48 in the morning, so it turns back on or resumes being connected. The phone connects with towers south of Moscow, Idaho, which is consistent with travel back to Pullman, Washington, utilizing towers along the route. From my training and experience, I know cellular devices can send and receive cellular data to towers with the user's input, such as surfing the internet, or without the user's input, such as system data. The normal reasons for a cellular device to not show connections to a cellular tower are that the device is not in range of the tower, so i.e. not there, or the device is physically blocked from receiving or sending, such as a Faraday bag, something that blocks signal from coming and going, or the device is in airplane mode, or the device is powered off. So they're giving you all the alternatives. It could be Brian Koberger wasn't there. We don't like that one. It could be in a Faraday bag. That might work. It might be that he turned it in airplane mode. That might work. It might be powered off. That might work. What we don't like is option number one, that he wasn't there. I contacted AT&T Global Legal Demand Center and confirmed the device on the AT&T network connected to at least every 60 minutes if no user activity is initiated. So in other words, even if they aren't using the phone, it pings it every 60 minutes, and so it should have pinged in that time. All right, we're almost done, and we are on time. Holy shit! One small document, and then the big one, and we are done with documents 151 to 200. This is Lawrence Mowry, 5/20/23, so May 23rd. On April 18th, that's when this event is about the event on April 18th. I applied for a warrant for user data from June 23rd to November 21st of 2022. So prior to Koberger even arriving, up through past the murders. Looking for Instagram accounts located with Xana and Maddie. Why are they looking specifically into Xana and Maddie prior to the murders and after the murders? Why after the murders as well? So there's something suspicious that they're looking at, or at least they're curious about what was going on before Koberger even arrived and past when the murders happened of Xana and Maddie. A previous warrant to Facebook requested the data range of August 1st, 2022 to November 20th. And again, here's the key. Previously, they're only looking at Brian Koberger, so they only want information August 1st through November 20th. The problem they have, this is what I'm trying to explain to you, is what I think the narrative is. The problem is they're looking for only the periods that Koberger was there and stalking the girls on Instagram, TikTok, whatever the case may be. They're trying to prove that Koberger was stalking the girls, and every single time they've told you they could find no connection. At some point, in at least 2 social media apps, they broadened the search to go back before Koberger even got into town and after, looking for somebody else. That's what it looks like to me. Even though they believe it's Koberger, they keep trying to find proof that Koberger knew the girls and they can't find it. So they broaden the search and like, okay, what else? Who else could be in this scope of investigation? So good for them keeping an open mind. I don't think they kept an open mind. They had him nailed from day one that he was going to be the guy. But the problem is that they couldn't find a connection between him and the girls. All right. And now the big one. And now the big one. The reason why I think this is the big one is this, and it is actually large, it's the interview of Brian Koberger after his arrest. It's at the police station. It's what Brian Koberger said that is super interesting to me and worthy of talking on the way out. Let me get a soda. This is some good shit. Brett Payne, May 10th, about an interview on December 29th. That was the day of his arrest in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. On December 29th, 2022, Idaho State Police Detective Sergeant Gilbertson, FBI Special Agent Shirley, and I arrived in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, in preparation for the service of the arrest and search warrants for Koberger and his family's residence at Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. By the way, they had a search warrant for the house, and they didn't find shit. Keep that in mind. At the house, at the Koberger's residence, it doesn't get talked about. They not only arrested him, but they had a search warrant for the house. They didn't find evidence about of the crimes or anything related to it there. That's why we didn't hear anything about it. If they had found evidence, you would freaking know about it by now, I assure you. So they found no evidence of the crimes at his house, even though they had a search warrant. Now, at approximately 2 in the morning on December 30th, so they've arrested him early hours, and now it's December 30th, and they're in holding, I think. Koberger is brought to the PSB Stroudsburg barracks and placed in an interview room. The interview was recorded on the built-in video system at the barracks, as well as Detective Gilbertson's pocket recorder. I would love to watch those videos. I want to see his actual body language, although again, we've been told he has autism spectrum disorder. How does he present? Now, what I will say from reading this interview with Brian Koberger, he seems very, very talkative. He seems very, very calm. Everybody said that he was calm, which got betrayed by those who love to spin narrative as cold stone killer. He literally doesn't look like he's done anything wrong, that creepy MFer. Or maybe you look like you didn't do anything wrong because you didn't do anything wrong. Nope, stone cold killer. There's nothing that presented that he was feeling guilty or nervous about anything. That is proof that he must be the killer. Like, anyways. So, Detective Gilbertson and I were in the interview, or were the interviewers present. This is a summary of our interview with Koberger and is not verbatim transcript of the interview. So it's a summary. So keep that in mind. They may not have it right, but this is what their recollection of that interview was. It is not a word for word, although a full interview transcript will be attached to this case file. All right. Detective Gilbertson and I began introducing ourselves and stating which agencies we represented. When I stated who I was, Koberger stated, "You do look familiar." He's chatty. You look familiar. Detective Gilbertson and I prepared our note-taking materials, and Detective Gilbertson read Koberger his Miranda rights advisement. So I'm sure he was read his rights upon arrest. They're reminding him before interrogation. You remember you have the right to remain silent. But he doesn't. Koberger does not remain silent yet. Detective Gilbertson asked Koberger if he understood his rights, to which he replied he did. After collecting Koberger's personal information and inquiring about any medications that he might be on, Detective Gilbertson and I, because they want to make sure he's of sound mind to conduct the interview. This is police 101. Are you taking anything? We don't want you to say later on, hey, I was drugged up, I just taken a Xanax or whatever. No, they're going to make sure. What medications do you take? Are you on anything right now? Nope. Okay. We'll make sure you're in good state of mind when we have this interview. So we're getting back. After collecting Koberger's personal information and inquiring about medications, Detective Gilbertson and I began to speak to Koberger. Detective Gilbertson asked Koberger about the SWAT operation at the house, to which Koberger replied he was concerned about his parents and his dog. I want to stop there for a moment. Many people have portrayed Brian Koberger as a sociopath or psychopath who has no feelings for anyone and gives zero fucks for anyone. And even when I pointed out that maybe Brian Koberger took a plea deal because he was concerned about his parents and what would happen to his parents if they were getting roped in or whatever, many people attacked me by saying he doesn't give a fuck about his parents. He's a sociopath. He gives zero fucks. And yet, what we find out is Brian Koberger, not necessarily in this document, Brian Koberger routinely called his parents every day from college. He was close with his family. He talked to them every day. He is concerned about his parents and his dog. So the narrative that you want to paint, Koberger gives zero fucks about anyone because he's a sociopath, is not true. Or he's just a really stone cold killer fooling people into thinking he cares about people. First thing he's asking about is how his parents are and how his dog is, which does not fit the narrative of sociopathic stone cold killer who gives zero shits about anybody but himself. Detective Gilbertson asked Koberger if he was going to Washington State University, to which he replied he was. We made small talk with Koberger about sports for some time. They're chatting about sports. Oh yeah, you watch the Cougars? What do you think about the football team this year? That's the way I envision it. That, again, does not fly with the narrative. Koberger is a creepy incel that doesn't talk to anybody, a mouth-breathing loser who has no friends, which is the narrative the media has painted over and over again. He's chatty. We find out from many things that he's chatty. So the narrative that he doesn't talk to people, he's all alone all the time. Which Koberger? Will the real Koberger please stand up? I don't know who to believe anymore. Koberger stated that, and I'm attacking the police reports because, again, the narrative for so long has been shaped that when I see the police reports indicating he's not like you told us he was, I can see you're finally showing us inside that whole interview room, and he's not like you told us he was. That's why I'm bringing it up, and that's why I'm starting to be critical of the reporting. Koberger stated, he did not follow WSU football, so they're asking how are the Cougars this year? What does their team look like? Well, he stated he didn't follow football much, but was a baseball fan. Detective Gilbertson asked Koberger if he had only been at WSU for a semester. Koberger confirmed this and said that he came to WSU with his father on July 1st. So there you go. I made a mistake. I said he came out in August. Koberger says he came out in July, so he was there in July. Okay. I can eat shit. I will eat shit right now. Okay, I thought he came out August. I thought I had been told he came out August. My bad. I am telling you what I think. That's all I'm telling you. I think he came out in August. Apparently he came out July 1st. So he had runs in the July area on Strava. So now it's all making sense. Good. We know he's there from July. But it's funny. To uneat some shit. They did repeatedly state. Did they not repeatedly state that they were looking for records from August 1st through November 20th, because that's when they believed Koberger arrived. So I'm not the only one who thought Koberger arrived August 1st, but he's telling them it was July 1st. All right. So I guess I can uneat a little shit because I'm not the only one who thought he was there on August 1st. Koberger then went on to say that he was a first-year PhD student in criminal justice and criminology. Detective Gilbertson asked Koberger what the process was to apply for a PhD. Koberger stated he applied to two places, University of Irvine and WSU. By the way, one of those is not Oklahoma. Anyways, but that's only if you watched my previous video. Koberger said he was going to graduate with his master's in criminal justice from DeSales and was inspired. Koberger then asked if it was okay to engage in Koberger asked, is it okay to engage in small talk like we are? And they replied that it was. So they've read him his Miranda rights, and Koberger's like, hey, we're just chit-chatting about football and sports and shit. Like, is this okay to talk about? Anyways, after briefly mentioning he was strengthened by the fact his mother and father were okay, he was strengthened by hearing his mother and father were okay. Is that sociopathic behavior? Koberger said he applied to two aforementioned schools because they did not require GRE exams. So because they didn't require him to take an exam, that's why he applied. Koberger then spoke about the GRE for a brief time and then said that he was accepted at WSU. Now, there's several reasons why I want to highlight this that are not going to make a lot of sense to you if you haven't been watching a lot of my videos. There is indications that Koberger picked this school because of funding that the school received from like an FBI grant to study crimes in an off-campus environment. And some people have said, what if he was sent to that school to participate in that study? That was one of the theories. And I'm not saying that this definitively rules that out, but Koberger tells us the reason WSU was applied to wasn't because they were receiving special funding, wasn't even because they had some kind of special program in criminology, as some people said, well, they're top-known school in criminology, that's why he picked it, because it wasn't even those two reasons. According to Koberger, the reason why he picked the school is because it was he applied to the two schools that didn't require a GRE exam. Does that mean, for example, and this is pure 100% speculation, and it's a no who gives a shit. If Koberger is applying to the only two schools that don't require a special exam, does that mean he's not good at test taking? Now, the problem with that is he's a PhD candidate. Apparently, he's done pretty good at test taking. Why is he trying to avoid the GRE? I don't know. Things that make me go, Detective Gilbertson then asked Koberger what led him down the road of becoming a professor. So why do you want to become a PhD? A professor of a doctorate of criminology. Koberger stated it was because he loved being in college and stated knowledge was far more important to him than money. Knowledge is far more important to Koberger than money. Koberger added, WSU had a good program to study under and said, you guys know all about this more than likely. So he's like, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. WSU is known for criminology. So I assumed he picked the school because it was a top criminology school. And he knows the cops would know it's a top criminology school. But he ultimately said he picked the school because they didn't have a GRE exam. Koberger then asked questions about the University of Idaho. Koberger then asked questions about University of Idaho and the Idaho universities before stating that he didn't know much about Idaho or Washington and had not left the tri-state area much. Koberger then returned to speaking about his focus on learning and how he thought he could obtain a doctorate degree. Koberger then said he recently returned home to see his family. Earlier I said professor, PhD. PhD is not, P in PhD is not about professor. I need to correct that. Anyways, Detective Gilbertson then asked Koberger about his time at DeSales University. Koberger spoke for some time about his time at Northampton Community College and DeSales. Koberger then spoke about how he became interested in criminal justice and stated he thought about being a police officer, but did not want to make that commitment unless he was absolutely sure. Koberger then continued to speak about his education and universities. Koberger also spoke more about the process to get into the PhD program and how competitive it can be. So it's chatty, conversational, football, baseball, how my parents, here's what I learned about college. It's a conversational thing. Not shutting down, not saying I need a lawyer right now. I need to, not yet. Detective Gilbertson then asked Koberger about his move to Washington. Koberger said he drove across country and wanted the challenge of driving across country and experiencing it with his father. Koberger then said he took a different route back home with his father for Christmas break to avoid snow. So, this is important as well. Many people stated that according to Brian Koberger's father, listen up, according to Brian Koberger's father, he was concerned why Brian Koberger wanted to take the route that he did on the way back to Pennsylvania. His father had determined the most direct route, and that was the route that he assumed they were going to take. Brian Koberger said no, he wanted to take a different route. They got into an argument of some kind where his dad was pissed off. Why are we going that route? It makes no sense. According to Koberger here, he said that he took that different route back to avoid snow. Some people have said the route that he took was more likely to hit snow. So I don't know what's going on there. Koberger then began to speak about the beauty of the environment and its relationship to God and a higher power. Wow, that's fucking weird to me. Koberger is bringing up God and higher power, and it's about the land. He's interested in the land and its connection, its relationship to God and a higher power. We spoke about this for some time, and Koberger said he was raised Christian, but always a skeptic, except when confronted with the beauty of the natural world. In other words, being a former Christian myself, I would say he has doubts about the Bible and he has doubts about religion, but when he looks at the beauty of the world, he realizes there must be a God. That's what I'm interpreting his saying. I look at the world and I'm realizing there's evidence of God, but I'm not sure about the Bible and the whole religion thing. That's what I interpreted. And once again, I ask you, if you believe in the beauty and the nature that proves that God exists and that the world is beautiful and it's a beautiful place, is that consistent with your narrative of he's a sociopathic incel who just wants to kill people? I don't know. Dr. Gilbertson asked Koberger if I had ever been to the Pacific Northwest, if he'd ever been to the Pacific Northwest prior to coming to WSU, and Koberger said he had not. I asked Koberger if he and his father made any stops along the way back to Pennsylvania. He told me they visited Colorado, but the main goal was to just drive. So where did they stop in Colorado? I don't know. Maybe they stopped at the Crime Con where I'm going, coming up here in Aurora, Colorado. I'm kidding. Anyways, Koberger then told a story about seeing an unmarked police car near Kansas City, Missouri, speeding up behind him, catching up to another vehicle, turning on its emergency lights, and then drive away. Koberger thought that was strange and was unsure why it occurred. So what it sounds like is a cop flipped its lights on, raced past him, rode up on somebody, and then just let it be. Didn't pull the car over and just drove away. And he thought that was odd. Enough to mention it to police officers. I find that odd, and I don't know what to make of that. Detective Gilbertson then asked Koberger about the job that he mentioned. Koberger stated he was a teaching assistant. Koberger then talked about how busy he was and how the funding package that comes along with being a teaching assistant is what makes the extra work worth it. So he's like, hey, I do all this work because it pays well. Koberger then discussed ongoing projects with the WSU. And so at this point, you can tell Koberger sounds like he doesn't believe he's being fired from his teaching assistant job. He does all this extra work because it's worth the money. But we find out he lost the money and he lost his teaching assistant job. Does he know that at this point? There's discussion about he was fired from it in a letter after he left with his father to Pennsylvania and hadn't realized he'd been fired yet. Just FYI. That's the way I remember it. Koberger then discussed ongoing projects with WSU Police Department and Pullman Police Department. Koberger spoke more about being a teacher's assistant and essentially assisting the professors and the department. Koberger stated he did not get to assist with teaching with Koberger stated he did not get to assist with teaching with the exception of assisting with office hours. Detective Gilbertson asked Koberger if he would be a TA again next semester, and Koberger replied he would. So again, I think Koberger doesn't realize that he's been terminated by the teaching assistant program, and he has full belief that he's going to be teaching next semester. He has full belief he's going to be back in Pullman next semester, and that everything is fine, despite people saying he knew his goose was cooked. He killed people and then bailed out and was never coming back. But according to this, it looks like he planned on coming back. Koberger then stated he understood why we were engaging in small talk, but would appreciate it if we explained to him what we were doing there. So Koberger at some point realizes, look, like he's not a rocket scientist apparently, but I guess after you broke the shit out of my house, broke the windows in, came in with flashbangs or whatever shit you did, because it was a big entry, and his parents were zip tied and he's arrested and taken to a detention center. He realizes that, we're probably not here for small talk. What are we really here for, guys? Because, what are we really here for? Detective Gilbertson asked Koberger why he thought we were there. That's a classic maneuver. You tell me why we're arresting you. Please admit to guilt. So he says, you tell me why we think we're here. He said he wanted Detective Gilbertson to tell him. Detective Gilbertson said, we were there because of what occurred in Moscow, but did not provide any further detail. So we're here because of what happened in Moscow. Wanting Koberger to say, oh, yeah, okay, I get it. Detective they were looking for signs he's going to admit to something. Detective Gilbertson asked Koberger if he watched the news. Koberger said, yeah, I watched the news. Detective Gilbertson then asked Koberger why he thought I looked familiar. Koberger said he wasn't sure and stated I had a familiar face and it looked like someone that he used to know. Detective Gilbertson then said, we were there because of what happened in November just off the University of Idaho campus. Detective Gilbertson asked Koberger, so he's basically saying, do you watch the news? Yeah. And he's basically saying, I'm on the news on that Idaho case. That's probably where you know me from, right? Right. So Detective Gilbertson asked Koberger if he knew what that was, to which Koberger replied, of course. So he's saying, we were there because of what happened in November on the University of Idaho. Do you know what that was? And Brian Koberger says, of course. Oh, he did it. Or he watches the news. When prompted to elaborate, please explain. How do you know about this? Koberger said it was the incident we had been investigating for. How long has it been? Koberger said. So in other words, he's aware that they've been investigating this crime in Idaho for some time. So how long have you been investigating this? Koberger said there were probably several incidents, and then said he was aware of a homicide because of a WSU alert that he had received. Detective Gilbertson asked when Koberger received the alert. Koberger said he wasn't sure, but he thought it was sometime the previous month. Detective Gilbertson confirmed that was why they were there and asked if Koberger wanted to talk about that. So he's like, hey, I heard there was a homicide in Idaho. We got an alert about the homicide in Idaho. And they're like, yeah, that's what we're here about. We're here to talk about that homicide in Idaho. Koberger replied, well, I think I would need a lawyer. So now, before you jump to that right there is proof Koberger is guilty, because as soon as they say we're here for the Moscow, Idaho murders, he's like, yeah, I'm going to need a lawyer for this. Keep in mind, he's already been arrested. His family's been zip tied. He's the only brought in for investigation. Or maybe when he asked the question, is anybody else been arrested for this crime or whatever you're doing? Maybe he's asking if his parents have been arrested because they were in zip ties. But the point being is, it doesn't necessarily prove anything when they say, yeah, we're here talking about who murdered those kids, that he says, I'm going to need a lawyer. And let me assure you one thing. I don't give a shit how unrelated I am to a murder. If somebody arrests me and says, by the way, we're going to interview you about what happened there in such and such city near your area, the first words out of my mouth is, I'm going to need a lawyer. And it's not because I like, oh shit, they got me. Because if I have no clue what they're talking about, if they start taking that attitude with me, we're going to need to talk about where you were on such a date. Yeah, I'm going to need a lawyer. Screw that. I know how this shit works. If you've decided I'm guilty of something, even if I have no clue what you're talking about, I'm going to need a lawyer. So, and that should be what you do as well. I'm going to need a lawyer. I don't care what. I just want to talk to you to see if I can clear your name. Fuck you. I'm going to need a lawyer. And not fuck you because I hate police, because I don't hate police. That's not the point. I've seen an interview from a police officer talking to college students that said, I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. I've seen an interview from a police officer to university students saying, never talk to the police. They're not there to clear your name. And I'm telling you, as a police officer, we're not there to clear your name. You do yourself no service by talking to the police officer. So one of your first things should be, I'm not talking. I want to talk to a lawyer. It's just like, and that was from an officer. Like, we're not there to clear your name. We're there to find evidence of guilt. We're looking for you to say something that implicates you in the murder or the crime. That's what we're looking for. When we're talking to you, we're looking for you to say something that convinces us you're the person. It's not to clear your name. So he says he's going to need to talk to a lawyer, which some people would say that's exactly proof of guilt. Koberger then asked if we could explain to him what we were there for specifically, and added that he was tired. So he wants to be done with this interview. He wants a lawyer. He wants to have them say what I'm under arrest for. That's what he's asking. Tell me exactly what you think I did, and I'm going to need a lawyer. Detective Gilbertson again stated that we were investigating the homicides of the 4 students and that we had questions and things that we hoped Koberger could help us understand. Koberger sat back and said that he had utmost respect for law enforcement, but stated it was a constitutional right to speak to an attorney. I would do the exact same shit. Not being a killer, I would do the exact same shit. Look, I respect what you officers do, and that's true. I respect law enforcement. I'd say, I respect what you guys do, but I'm going to need a fucking lawyer. Okay, I wouldn't leave the F word in there, but that would be my attitude. I respect you guys, but look, I know how this works. You're not here to be my buddy. You're not here to be my friend. We're not having coffee, even though they said, Koberger just said, we should go out for coffee sometime. That's a side tangent. The point being is that I know that's not, we're not there to make friends. If I'm in the interrogation room, we're not there to make friends. So while I respect what you guys do, I'm going to need a lawyer. All right. So he has constitutional rights to speak to a lawyer. Detective Gilbertson affirmed this. Yeah, you're right. You do have a right to talk to a lawyer. Koberger then re-engaged and said the only thing he heard from Moscow was an alert that came from his phone. So here Koberger has the opportunity to shut the hell up. Shut up, man. You said I'm going to need a lawyer. Leave it at that. But he starts talking again about Idaho. Koberger then re-engaged and said the only thing that he heard about Moscow was an alert that came on his phone. Koberger then said he wanted to talk to an attorney. So I need an attorney. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Idaho. I need an attorney. Okay. Detective Gilbertson said that he would stop now because Koberger had wanted to speak to an attorney. So even though Koberger is starting to indicate that he's willing to talk some more about Idaho, the fact that he said the words, I need to talk to an attorney, the officer says, look, you've already told me once you want to talk to an attorney, so we have to stop this interview. Good for them. That's how that's supposed to work. Koberger then asked where his parents were and where his dog was. Again, sociopath doesn't give a shit where his dog is or his parents. So that narrative needs to be corrected a little bit. I wouldn't call this a sociopathic behavior unless you're just saying stone cold killer is setting up an alibi like he's something that he's not. Anyways. Koberger re-engaged again and asked what questions we would have for him. So Koberger seems awkward here. I want a lawyer, but I'm going to keep talking about Idaho. And they're like, look, you've asked for a lawyer. We're done talking about Idaho. But Koberger's willing to talk about Idaho, but he's also asked for a lawyer. Detective Gilbertson then asked Koberger again if he understood his rights and asked specifically what Koberger wished. He's like, you have the right to an attorney. You realize that. You've asked for an attorney. Which one is it? Do you want to talk to us about Idaho, or do you want your attorney? That's the way I interpret that conversation going. Koberger asked what specifically we wanted to talk to him about and the reason. I told Koberger that he had invoked his Fifth Amendment right, and we were not going to ask him any further questions. You invoked your right to remain silent by asking for an attorney, so you keep asking us to spell out the details. We're not going to spell out the details for you anymore because you've asked for an attorney. So it's a weird moment. Koberger realizes he needs an attorney. He's asking for an attorney, and yet he still wants them to tell him one-sidedly, what all are you looking for with me? That's the way I interpret it. Koberger wants an attorney, yes, but he'd like to know what he's being charged with, what he's facing. And they're like, we're not going to even tell you what you're being charged with or being faced with right now. Well, I probably was told what he was charged with when they made the arrest. You're probably being arrested in connection. I don't know why they wouldn't tell them that on his arrest and reading his Miranda rights at the scene. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. At this point, we concluded our interview with Koberger and left the room. And there you are. I hit the 1 hour mark. I thought that interview was full of really cool, interesting shit. An interaction with Koberger in which he seems very, very chatty. Indications that Koberger may not be a sociopath or a psychopath because he actually cares about the welfare of his parents and his dog, of all things. Indications and clarifications that Koberger was there a little earlier. And this weird interaction where Koberger asks for an attorney but still willing to talk about Idaho. All of these, and that he watches the news all the time. That's interesting as well, because later on when you find out that, oh, he was searching for the murders online, he watches the news all the time. He pays attention to the news all the time. He's a criminology student. If a mass quadruple homicide just happened by you on campus, I would be interested. I'd be searching the hell out of it. Thank God I'm not going to be accused of anything, because they would take that apparently as somehow an indication of guilt. You were looking up on the murders because you got off on it, right? No, I'm interested in true crime. And if a murder happens right next to me, I'm probably researching to see if I've got another case to talk about. Anyways, thank you very much for listening. We're done with documents 151 through 200. It goes to 317. I will do my best to keep us on a pace to get this done in the next few days so that we can put this part to bed. Hope you're not having super fatigue on this case, because there's still interesting stuff out there. Talk to you guys later.